Hey guys, it's Courtney Carson from Cosmic Clarity Astrology, and today I'm here to talk about the Gemini full moon happening on December 5th. So, this is a really interesting one to me because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury has been pretty much retrograde for most of November. So, we're just kind of coming out of this energy where we have been really reviewing things that we've been involved in, but I feel like not just like the basic sense of reviewing something, but I think that we did a deeper emotional dive because Mercury was retrograding through Scorpio and through Sagittarius. And I think we were assessing our viewpoint on things and if we're living in integrity with certain things, if we are not, maybe there's some shadowy feelings or some shadowy emotions or some troubling emotions that we experienced. And yeah, the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio can take us to like deeper places within ourselves, basically. And so I think that's what we've been doing in November and maybe revisiting old patterns. And that might be something that you kind of feel around this full moon as well. But ultimately, we're kind of I don't know, it's like I almost see like a car driving through a tunnel or a mountain and then you come out the other side and the sun reappears and you just have this whole kind of darker inner experience through the tunnel, and you're coming out into a different world and now the sun is shining. That's how I see this full moon, though I don't know if it's quite that simple and there's some layered emotions on top of that. But now I think with this Sag sun, it's in a fire sign. It's giving us a sense of kind of, hope for what is next and this larger perspective on what it is that we really think about something, what it is that we really need, we really want to prioritize. And I feel like this is kind of conception or this birth of a new belief system is happening because the sun is sitting here wedged between like equidistant, wedged between Venus and Mars, which are the feminine and the masculine planet. And together they are like mating or whatever you would say and producing the sun in the middle, this sense of, again, kind of like optimism and perspective and re-engagement with life. The sun is coming out again in some kind of way. And so I'm excited for the chapter that is going to be ahead, but I do think that we still have some things that we might need to do around this full moon to make it a good chapter for us. With Mercury, the ruler of this full moon, still being in Scorpio and then also making a quincunx to Chiron, I do think that there are going to be maybe some ties to previous limiting beliefs or maybe some addictions or some patterns that we could be stuck in that this Mercury quincunxing Chiron is asking us to heal. And so we might be kind of coming out of that tunnel and these reflections with Mercury retrograde and getting to the other side and realizing, okay, this is where the problem is. Like, let me work on that now. So we might be feeling those things present, but I don't think that we're going to be stuck in that energy. In fact, I think that this full moon is going to be creating some kind of breakthrough for us, especially because Mercury is opposite Uranus. So there is this energy quite like purely of breakthrough because that's what Uranus typically represents. So there's something here about being able to have a sudden shift, have again a sudden breakthrough, a sudden epiphany, a shakeup, a way that you are changing or re-engaging with something in your life, a fresh start, a fresh perspective that is going to help us get out of again, that kind of stuck energy or challenging energy of Mercury quincunxing Chiron. So I'm excited for that. Something really fascinating about this full moon as well is that it's making an exact square to the nodes. So they're all at 13 degrees. So I just thought that is interesting as many planets will square the nodes, and I think that's significant, but especially when a full moon does. I feel like there is a karmic message, or it represents a turning point where we have this option to go down this path or that path. And that's really what I feel like this full moon is saying. And I think it's kind of imploring us to really ensure that in this crossroads of life that we are choosing the path that feels the best for us. And again, I really think that we are, especially because there's a grand water trine that's offering us a lot of spiritual and intuitive support, and a lot of healing energy that's going to help us make the higher possible decisions in our life. So I think that we are going to make the best decisions for us, but I do think this square to the node still indicates that there is an importance and a seriousness, like the opposite of levity, but not in a negative way, but there's like a pivotal energy to this moment in time. And I think, again, it's really how we choose to manage ourselves in our lives, how we choose to make certain decisions that is going to, really impact and say a lot for this time. I think that we're meant to be developing a healthy ego, a healthy sense of agency, self-respect, self-trust in ourselves. That I think relates a lot to the sun squaring the nodes. And then for the moon squaring the nodes, we might feel a little bit more emotional, but that's also typical of full moon anyway. We could be feeling torn between, wanting to be in the familiar, in the past, with the moon, and kind of doing what we've always done, or living, maybe being more concerned with other people's opinions or expectations, or the world's expectations. And then we might be worried again, like about social things, or what will help us fit in, or help us belong, or what will satisfy the logical mind. That's kind of the moon in Gemini squaring the south node to me. There's too much of a preoccupation with logic, whereas the sun and the north node share the same ruler, Jupiter. So there's more of an affinity between these planets. So I think that we're kind of being asked to look more to the sun at this full moon for answers. And so again, that's developing a healthy sense of self-confidence and agency and ego to make the best decisions for our lives. And I also talked about this grand water trine. So we have Mercury in Scorpio. We also have it trining Jupiter in Cancer, and then trining Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So a grand water trine, to me, creates a sense of ease. And sometimes that can be difficult in a personal natal chart because it can represent maybe having like not enough friction to get things up and going in your life. But that's not how I see it. And especially coming off the back of a Mercury retrograde this past month, I feel like what it's representing is a sense of frictionless movement in life now. So we're no longer being stopped at every turn. We're having ideas come to us. We're having opportunities or breakthroughs, or like the general feeling that things are like when we make decisions, the world is reacting accordingly. And it's not like we have to try so hard and not have anything happen, or we feel conflicted and we're, not really sure of like what we want to do. We're second guessing things. Like there's a lot of ways that this Mercury retrograde slowed us down. And so now I feel like this grand water trine is speaking to it, speeding us up, because now Mercury is supported. However, Mercury is still in the path that it went retrograde on. So it hasn't broken new ground. And it won't until the middle of December. It won't break new ground until the middle of December. So yeah. And then also Mercury currently at 22 Scorpio is, Mercury was also at the same degree of Scorpio back on October 22nd, when Mercury first went over that placement. And then it went retrograde over it again on November 24th. And now the final pass at 22 degrees of Scorpio is this full moon. So if you guys have placements around 22 degrees of Scorpio or the fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus, then there is definitely an important message here for you, or within, 5 degrees of those signs. There's something that needs to be re-examined and maybe healed a little bit around whatever planets you have at those degrees. So just consider that within your own chart. Okay, I wanted to also talk about, I'm just looking at my notes, but I wanted to also talk about the nodes. I know we talked about it a little bit, but the North Node in Pisces at this time, again, sharing the same ruler with the Sun and Sagittarius. Both of these planets or these placements share Jupiter, and Jupiter represents the ability to trust in life and have this optimism in life and take advantage of opportunities, and in Pisces in particular, to have a sense of universal trust in life, in the flow of things. And and so I think that that's part of our mission right now. And with the South Node in Virgo, this is really about us getting rid of overthinking things, criticizing ourselves about things, nitpicking around things, looking for the problems in ourselves or others, losing the forest through the trees, trying to control something, or, have everything planned out to a T and not adapt. No, I would say Virgo is adaptable, is a mutable sign, but just still wanting to feel like you have all the answers when there are things in life you don't have the answers of or the control over. So that's what I think we're meant to be kind of stepping away from. And we might have been experiencing some of that during this Mercury retrograde, because Mercury rules the South Node. So we've been reflecting on where we've been maybe living out of alignment, or living in ways that are harmful to us, or, having certain things in our life that need to be healed. Or anyway, I'm not going to keep going on about this. So I think you guys understand that. And then we also have, this is really big. We also have Mars squaring Saturn and Neptune. So yeah, I mean, this placement, I think is somewhat challenging. It is involving the two malefics. So there is, and a hard aspect. So there is going to be some often, just a challenge to overcome usually. So this challenge could involve needing to say no to something or end something. And that, again, makes a lot of sense when we talked about having maybe patterns or addictions or limiting beliefs that we're having to navigate. I think that we are having to end that, having to end the self-criticism, Virgo South Node, having to think, again, more optimistically, Mars and Sagittarius. And we might have to cut away certain people, perhaps. That's always common with Mars squaring Saturn. We might have to step away or end something in our life, just anything. It's also possible sometimes to be a little bit more prone to accidents, or getting sick, or injuring yourself, or maybe needing surgery. So sometimes that can happen with a placement like this. And then in general, I think that this is a time where we are meant to apply ourselves. But again, not in a forceful way. With this grand water trine, I think the application of ourselves, I don't know if that makes sense, but applying ourselves has to come from a place of inspiration, from intuition, from a place of excitement, feeling like something wants to come out of us, like we want to create something, or we want to do something because we're excited to do it for ourselves or whatever. So that's what this square is about. It's about working hard from that place, which is a lot more, I think, optimistic and beneficial. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop the analysis here, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into what this is going to look like for all of the rising signs, but you can also watch for your sun sign. All right, up first we have Aries rising and sun. So this Gemini full moon is happening in your third house, and the sun is opposite it in your ninth house. And the third, ninth house axis and Gemini in general has a lot to do with our mindset. So I think one of the biggest things that's shifting for you guys at this time is the way that you're thinking about things. I pulled cards and I asked, what are the blessings that you're receiving? And I got the Nine of Swords, which typically represents anxiety or having some kind of fearful thinking or overthinking. And so having this card come out as a blessing to me represents you guys being able to kind of guard your mind a little bit more. And I think this has a lot to do with Mercury retrograding this past month in November through Scorpio and then partially through Sagittarius. It's retrograding through Scorpio in your eighth house can bring up things that have maybe upset you in the past. So part of your advice for this full moon is the Judgment and the Five of Cups in reverse. And so I think part of how you're going to get the blessing of being more at peace and having more of a healthy mind is going to be from releasing judgment of yourself for being maybe emotionally tied to things that have already ended, or disappointments or past pains maybe have come up, like past events, past people could have come back up, and you could have maybe judged yourself for those situations or for re-engaging with them emotionally or thinking about them again. And I think part of your advice here is to allow yourself to, I don't know. I guess if it comes up, like it's coming up to be healed for a reason. So not judging yourself if those things come back up. You know, maybe old patterns, old thoughts, old emotions. But the Judgment card can also speak to having an awakening around something and getting this higher vantage point, which really represents the sun and Sag in your ninth house. So I do think that there's something here around needing to either have some kind of like spiritual experience or needing to have, again, like a greater perspective like you get with religion or spirituality or something, even being in nature, or seeing yourself in comparison to space, like seeing how small you are and life is in comparison, or that event is in comparison to like the larger scope of things. I think putting it into perspective is part of what your advice is, so that you're able to start maybe not dramatizing the emotions as much, because it can, because sometimes we can kind of reignite the flame of the emotion again. And when we revisit these past events during Mercury retrogrades, and it's almost like making it seem smaller intentionally, but through a place of wisdom or through like higher ideals or through spiritual beliefs and perspectives. That's what we're meant to do. And I think it's going to help you not blow things out of proportion with the Nine of Swords, not to invalidate those feelings and those thoughts, but it's not about not having them. But it's almost like don't feed into them more than they need to be, because the Nine of Swords can represent really like laying awake at night and taking these whole like train of thoughts to their conclusion and getting like feeding into it and getting a little bit more worked up about it. So there's something about this where you are meant to be at this time learning how to stop yourself when you get in that process. And Mercury, the ruler of this full moon, is quincunxing Chiron in your first house. So I do think that there's something here that needs to be healed around like your sense of self and maybe boundaries around yourself, or your sense of self-worth, or your sense of self-confidence, or your self-image. Like there's some things that need to be healed, because those fears or insecurities could drive these thoughts to keep going in a way that's undermining you. And the lesson for this full moon, I got the Emperor for you guys, which is interesting because this is a card of somebody who's like boss bitch was the first thing that came to mind. But yeah, this is a card of somebody really in their authority, in their power, taking up space, leading their life. So yeah, I don't really know. You don't have a lot of 10th house stuff going on. I'm just looking at your chart. So I don't know, this might be more of, I'm curious if you know what this applies to for yourself. Let me know in the comments below. But I do feel like this might pertain more to maybe those boundaries that we talked about. So part of the lesson is kind of having authority and control over your mind, over certain aspects of your life, and maybe even your lifestyle that could perpetuate potentially the negative thoughts. Yeah, it just feels like somebody who's very much they're learning how to use their own willpower, their own energy, their own mind for their benefit and for the development of something larger than them. That's kind of the journey that I think you're on, and this Gemini full moon is playing a role in this. So you can't be this really successful person without being able to confront the mental roadblocks along the way. And I think that this speaks to that. There's something in your life that you want to maybe develop or succeed at or become an authority in, even if it's just your control over your own life. But I think that those things get diminished. That sense of power gets diminished when you enter into the 9 of Swords and start to question and doubt yourself. As an Aries rising, part of your purpose is to develop a decisive, action-oriented manner of being. And so I think that that's very much the Emperor, the entrepreneur. They take bold, audacious, and decisive action, and they don't overthink themselves and cripple themselves in the past. And did I make a mistake? And oh, I regret this, or I shouldn't have done this, or I can't believe that happened. And getting stuck on all that, it really diffuses a lot of the energy. And so I think that you're meant to be cutting off that that path as it starts to develop in your mind, not allowing yourself to go down that, because again, I think you're building towards something so big and purposeful that you literally won't have capacity to hold both of those things at once. You can't be the Emperor and 9 of Swords at once, essentially. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing for you, Aries. I hope that this is relevant. You could, in more practical terms, you could have important realizations right now, important conversations. You could hear unexpected news that is, unexpected. And we do have Mars in the 9th squaring Saturn and Neptune in the 12th. So there is kind of this crisis of faith a little bit. I don't want to say crisis necessarily, but there is this need with the Judgment card, I think, to have this kind of reckoning moment around belief systems and faith in that higher perspective that I was talking about here. Anyway, I'll leave it there, but yeah, that's what I see for you. If this resonates, let me know in the comments down below. Please hype the video. I know that's new, but maybe it helps. I don't know. Please like the video. Please comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, up next we have Taurus rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 5th and 4th is taking place in your 2nd house. So what is this going to represent for you? Well, a full moon in Gemini is typically going to relate to some kind of shift in perspective, to think about something in a different way, or to have clarity emerge for you in some way. And this is coming in around your finances, your values, your self-worth by being in the 2nd house. So I broke this reading down into 3 questions that I asked the tarot. And the first one is, what is your blessing from this Gemini full moon? And I got the Emperor, which is weird because the last group also got this, but in a different position. And the Emperor speaks to somebody who is, like I was mentioning, an entrepreneur, a business owner, somebody who's really got a good hold over themselves, or they feel like they have some sense of authority in a field that they're in, or they, again, have strong agency. They're able to be the leader of their own lives, to be independent, to feel, again, that there's some level of control that they have over their environment, over their money, over their possessions. So there's something around this where I think that you guys are at this full moon thinking more about how to create a sense of independence and maybe thinking about relationships differently as well. Because Mercury, we just got off the back of a Mercury retrograde, which was taking place primarily in your 7th and 8th houses in Scorpio and Sag. So that really helps us conceptualize what we're looking for in relationships differently, or how we're relying on people differently. And with this full moon ending it, or kind of capitulating the Mercury retrograde experience and being in your 2nd house of finances and independence, I think that it's wrapping up this cycle where you were reflecting on relationships and how much you rely on them or don't rely on them. And I don't know, I just see you coming out with like more of a sense of authority over yourself and more of an independence. So maybe you are recognizing, if you rely on people financially, how to make money in a different way. Or maybe you are realizing where you need to hold your power or have greater boundaries in relationships, or greater, priority, where you're prioritizing yourself and your values. So yeah, it's going to look different for a lot of people, but there's something here where I think that you are really coming into your own, and you're not allowing relationships to either throw you off. Like, this is part of what you've learned for this Mercury retrograde, not allowing the relationships to throw you off kilter, to take you away from your goals, your ambitions, to take your power away, to be overly reliant on someone. You're learning how to be firm and to hold true to yourself in all ways. And that's going to look very different from each person's like unique life. So that's the blessing that you're getting from this. And you might not immediately feel it right away, but I do think that that's something coming into your life right now. We also have the lesson, and we have the 10 of Swords in reverse. So this usually has something to deal with not letting the past stay in the past. And that makes a lot of sense with the sun being in your 8th house, with Mercury partially retrograding through the 8th house, or starting its retrograde when it was in your 8th house. So there is something around maybe not wanting to necessarily complete a cycle, or like let something go, or like not letting sleeping dogs lie. There's just something about this where the past can haunt you a little bit. So I think part of the lesson of this Mercury retrograde is that maybe old relationships, or old dynamics in relationships, or even old financial dynamics, potentially concerning other people, could have been brought back up and haunting you a little bit. And maybe you felt like kind of thrust back into that mode of thinking, or that worry, or that anxiety, or that past experience. But with having the Emperor as your blessing, I do think that you're going to be able to set solid boundaries and have that firm sense of self that won't allow you to just continue to be pulled back into something that is an old narrative. Your advice for this full moon is the 3 of Wands and 9 of Wands. So this to me is like, when I see the 9 of Wands, I think stay the course. And there's something about this that could be, again, it could be financial, that may, especially with the Emperor card, that may speak to long-term resolution. Especially with this grand water trine that we have going on, involving Saturn in your 11th right now. There's something about your goals and your intentions, even relationships, that may take longer to unfold. And the Emperor, I think, holding their own and really having this clear vision of where they're going and being firm around not wavering is going to be essential, because the 9 of Wands represents the need to persevere despite maybe other options that are not really what you're looking for coming in, or despite side quests that you could potentially be pulled down that could take away your focus. So there's something here around persevering, maintaining focus, maintaining also pleasure with the goal. With the 3 of Wands, the sense of like adventure in this process. Like if this is going to be a long journey to maybe a financial outcome or a relational outcome that you're looking for, if it's going to be a long journey, then maybe can we just have fun in the process of it too with the Three of Wands? Can we try new stuff? Can we put ourselves out there in new ways? Can we push the edge of our comfort zone? Can we maybe talk to people we never would have talked to before, or start our own podcast, or whatever it is? There's something here around maybe sharing more of your voice that's really common with a Gemini full moon, and also Jupiter in your third right now at the time of this full moon. And yeah, I don't know. There's just something here around being able to reach beyond yourself and what you've been doing, and then also make the long road ahead more exciting and adventurous by experimenting and trying new things. So yeah, I hope that this message makes sense for you guys, but that's what I'm seeing for you, Taurus. I hope you have a beautiful day. I guess I should mention that your planetary ruler is Venus is in Sag, and anyway, I don't want to go into all that right now. Sorry. I'm like, I want to keep the readings like around 7 minutes. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm sorry guys for that fake out, but if you did enjoy this for what it was, then let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any of your own thoughts on your experiences here and you want to share them, that means so much to me, to be able to interact with somebody on the other side of the screen, because you guys have to remember I'm literally talking to my computer and it's kind of weird. So it's helpful to have real people interact. And don't forget to also like the video, hype the video, share with your friends. Any kind of support is really appreciated. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, next we have Gemini rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your first house, which of course is going to mean a full moon in your sign. It is more significant for you. So you've been probably feeling some musings and shifts in perspectives and happenings going on with your relationships, with your commitments, your contracts, the associations that you make with people, the even again business and work connections as well. So all those things could be things that you've been potentially contemplating recently, or have some happenings going on with. And we are just coming off the back of a Mercury retrograde throughout most of November, which took place in your 7th and 6th house. So really you could have been reviewing a lot when it comes to both relationships and work, and looking at those areas of your life, or having some shadows come up around them, or patterns come up, or even past people or past circumstances rear their head. And now this Gemini full moon is trying to kind of take all those lessons and the things that you were going through this past month and make you have some kind of breakthrough, or some kind of clarity, or some type of decision that you come to, or have some type of movement if you felt stuck previously in those areas. And it's trying to help things clear away. It doesn't mean that everything is like super perfect around this full moon. I'm not going to go into all the details, but you should watch the overview if you want to know. There are some layers of different emotions coming in, but I do think largely this is going to feel like we're finally clear and moving forward in a way that we didn't get last month. So I pulled cards and I asked, what is your blessing for this Gemini full moon? And I got the Lovers and the Hermit. So there's a lot of messages here, but I think this also speaks to the sun being in the 7th house, which is the house of relationships. Mercury also retrograded there before previously. And so I think that, again, we've had a lot of inner reflection around what we want in relationships, or how we're showing up, or does this contract with this company feel right to me? Does this commitment to this person, does hanging out with this kind of friend group, or is this the kind of partner I want? Or do I need to put myself out there more? How do I approach my relationships? How do I speak to my partner if I'm already in a committed relationship? So there's a lot going on in terms of your analysis of yourself and your role in a commitment with something like an entity or someone else. And so that's what the Hermit and the Lovers card is. And I think it's really, this Gemini full moon is going to constellate having some kind of blessing emerge in terms of making, again, a clear decision or having a clear path forward in regards to relationships. Some of you with the Lovers card may have a new relationship come into your life, or it could simply be that you are leaving behind a relationship, especially a work one, because Mars in the 7th squares Saturn, Neptune in the 10th. So there could be some type of work relationship ending there. Doesn't have to be though. Or you could be leaving one kind of relationship to go to another, or you could be trying to get rid of the world's expectations of you and what you should want in life or what you should do, or like judgment from other people. You could be getting rid of that and instead trying to figure out what works best for you as an individual. So there's a lot of layers to this that would take too long to go into, but I see that there is a lot of self-awareness that you now have around your commitments to another person or an entity. And the lesson here, I got the 8 of Swords. So the lesson around this full moon, I think that there may have been ways where you felt trapped in some kind of cycle, and that really speaks to Mercury retrograde. So trapped in a cycle or stuck in a certain energy, like feeling again like you couldn't move forward during this Mercury retrograde this past November. So I think that part of the lesson of this full moon is, how do I get unstuck through my own self-analysis and my own like shaping of my mind and my thoughts and my way of seeing something? Because maybe you felt like, there's just so many examples. Maybe you always wanted to put yourself out there, but then you never really did, and you felt really anxious, and you never really asked for what you wanted or stood up for yourself in some way, or maybe you were too anxious to, try something new or whatever. And this Gemini full moon is saying, where are those thoughts coming from, and how are those thoughts holding you back from reaching your full potential with trying something new? Again, maybe socializing more, or leaving something, or asking to go on a date with somebody, or asking for what you want in your current partnership, or or asking for a raise in your company. Like it's gonna, again, a million examples of this, but there are ways in which we limit ourselves and we get anxious and we overthink things, and then we never move forward. And I think this November was a lot around that. For example, for me, since I'm a Gemini sun, I've been working on a fiction fantasy book, and I like was full steam ahead, and then Mercury retrograde hit, and it was like I hit a brick wall, and I just felt like I couldn't move forward until I looked at all the backstory, the magic system. I still don't think it's all figured out, but now I feel like I can finally move forward again. And I think part of this was the 8 of Swords experience of just feeling like I'm doubting everything that I'm doing, rather than, oh, I really need to figure all this out at this exact moment. It was just this feeling of being stuck in my head, and that actually being the block. So that could have been a lot of our experiences in November. And this full moon is trying to have us have this breakthrough moment with Mercury opposite Uranus, where we're finally getting unstuck, where we're finally realizing that that approach or way of thinking about things wasn't going to work for us, and coming at it from a different perspective that is going to be better. And again, for a lot of us, this is going to be pertaining to relationships, but for some of it could be work or work relationships, or some kind of mixture of those two areas of our life. So what is your advice for this full moon? So we got the 2 of Pentacles and the 6 of Wands in reverse. This one kind of stumped me when I was looking at it, not because I don't have any interpretation, but I just feel like there are a lot of interpretations of these cards together. So I'm going to start listing some of them out, and we'll see if one of them stands out. So the 2 of Pentacles can represent somebody who really needs to have a good handle on their finances. So if some of you guys have been kind of letting money slip through your fingers, or if you haven't been maybe as responsible with your work, or if you felt kind of out of balance lately, I think that that's trying to inspire some sense of control over your resource, time, money, energy management, and your schedule. The Two of Pentacles is somebody who gets into a good flow with how they are managing those resources. And I think this speaks to the grand water trine, Jupiter in Cancer trine in your second, trining Saturn and Neptune in your 10th, and Pisces, and trining Mercury and Scorpio in your 6th. So there's something here around managing, like maybe you have multiple projects going on and you need to move them both forward at similar rates. So you need to kind of flip back and forth. Or maybe you have really important responsibilities with your family and with your work. Or maybe you have, again, let some of your financial things like go and haven't been monitoring them as well. So there's a lot of ways this can manifest, but the Two of Pentacles is insinuating that the advice here is to gain a tighter control over those areas of your life, but in a very watery, fluid, and intuitive way. So this means that if you have, like, instead of having maybe, and I'm not saying don't budget, but I'm just going to use this as an example. Instead of having like a really strict budget where you're like, okay, I can spend this much on grocery this day and I can go here and only spend this much on this day. I think it could be more helpful to have larger brushstrokes of, okay, I can spend this much in a week. Let me keep an eye on this like every few days, but more so operate from a place of instinct where intuitively I feel like I really don't need to buy that coffee today. That's not super important to my values. Let me spend that money somewhere else. So something like this where you're using your instinct and intuition to make decisions in the moment rather than having like a very defined plan, defined schedule that has to work out this way. Like you can still gain control over something from a more feminine place by trusting each moment when you feel an instinct or a pull to make this or that decision or take this or that action. So hopefully that makes sense. So the other message, I guess I'm not going to interpret these together. The other piece of advice is the Six of Wands in reverse. So I think also part of this is to not try to get, I feel like this is like, don't try to please everybody. Or don't like operate from too much hubris or too much pride. Don't try to reach as much for recognition and having people, the Six of Wands in reverse is like kind of having fans or people worshiping you or, there's something about this where it's like, it's not going to help you as much to pursue the things that you want from a place of wanting recognition. And so I think I don't know who this pertains to or why this is coming up, but there's something around this that could be related to Mercury making a quincunx to Chiron in Aries in your 11th. But there could be something here around wanting to be accepted and belong, feel like you belong, or feel like you are praised, or feel like you are doing the best, and like having kind of a drive for that, recognition or that acceptance. And I think that there's something here that's saying to not allow yourself to be too driven by that, because part of this full moon in Gemini is about you understanding yourself and operating from a place of your needs, your desires. And I think if you put too much emphasis on what others think, that is very fickle, that is very mercurial, that can change at any moment. And it will, if that's how you interpret yourself through others' eyes, then it could create a distortion of your sense of self. So there's something about this Gemini full moon around seeing yourself clearly and honestly without letting so much of the praise or criticism or others' opinions or do they accept me, do they like me, is this going this way or that way? Like not allowing that to drive any opinion of yourself, because I think that there's so much that you have that there's so much that you're capable of. There's so much that you're meant to do and meant to experience. And if that is a driving factor, this sense of approval or being liked or being praised, I think that will really get in the way of the greatness that you have on the other side, or that the experiences that you're meant to go through. So I hope that this is helpful for you, Gemini. That is your reading for the Gemini full moon. Please do let me know in the comments down below how this relates to your life. I've been telling the other groups, it is very weird as a YouTuber to just like talk to a screen and a microphone. I know I'm breaking the fourth wall, but it's weird, guys. Like, imagine just sitting in front of your computer and just talking to it. I know it might seem natural, but it's really nice to hear from somebody on the other side of the screen. So I'd appreciate any comments about you, your life, questions even, but I do like to get to know you. So I do want to start doing like live videos, because I just think it would be so fun to have the sense of connection in the work that I'm doing. So yeah, I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to also like the video, hype the video, subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope that you guys have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, up next is Cancer rising and sun. The Gemini full moon happening December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 12th house. So part of this Gemini full moon is to have some type of clarity come through as a result of this Mercury retrograde that we've been having throughout November. So whenever we have a Mercury retrograde, there are usually people or patterns or emotions or experiences from the past that we are having to go back and fix, review, maybe old projects, again, old dynamics. So you guys might have really felt that, especially in regards to things with your own creative ventures, your own children, or work stuff, work dynamics, because Mercury was retrograding through your 6th and 5th house in November. So those might have been the primary areas where you have felt reflective or troubled by or stagnant with in November. But now hopefully things will feel like they are moving again with this Gemini full moon, especially with Mercury opposite Uranus, kind of giving this spark of energy and life back to you. But I asked Spirit for what the blessing is with this full moon for you guys, and I got the 3 of Swords and the Judgment in reverse. So to me, this really speaks to a full moon in the 12th, because the 12th is often associated with things that bring up stuff from the bowels of us, of our past, like things from deep within, that have felt maybe, that have rocked us to the point where we've kind of relegated them to our unconscious mind or subconscious mind and pushed them aside. So there's something here, I think, around healing that is coming through for you with the 3 of Swords and the Judgment in reverse. If you've been previously really hard on yourself, if you have judged yourself for others, if you have, again, had some maybe negative emotions or negative like self-talk, or a lot of uncertainty and just difficult emotional experiences, I see that this is being cleansed at this Gemini full moon. And this is a lot about changing perspectives. So the inner dialogue, the way that we perceive something, the way that we communicate about something with ourselves and others is what's shifting the most. And so I see that that's making a really big difference in the way that you feel. And again, I think a lot of that comes from that judgment, where you're no longer allowing yourself to beat yourself up. The lesson that we have is the Ace of Wands and the Chariot. Really interesting, because these are very positive cards, and like the blessing are kind of negative cards. In reverse, they're good, but the cards themselves are negative in the blessing, which means that something that was negative is turning positive. So sour emotions, judgmental feelings are leaving. But the lesson is something with positive cards. So I actually feel like this is the universe trying to inspire you towards, again, that spark of passion again in life with the Ace of Wands, and with getting more clear and committed to the things that you want to move forward with. The Chariot is around merging the masculine and feminine. It is the ability for us to use our willpower to move things forward quickly on our goals. So something here where the lesson is literally to get reignited with something that you were wanting to do, to regrow your confidence with something, to get re-inspired by something, take more action forward with something if you felt like discombobulated, out of sorts emotionally, or you know, and if that took you away from some of your goals, the lesson is to, well, the full moon, I think, is going to help you release some of those feelings. And the lesson is to just re-engage with the things that you wanted to do before Mercury went retrograde at the beginning of November. So yeah, it's trying to say like, okay, time to come back to life in a way. Your advice is the Seven of Wands. Really interesting. This is a combative card in the sense that this person, you see all these wands are trying to like beat the shit out of this person. They're like, no, you're not coming near me. There's something here around defending something, defending your right to do something, or if you already have achieved something, defending your authority within that, you know, not letting other people try to take you down a peg. So tall poppy syndrome is very Seven of Wands. So yeah, there's something here around not letting things get in the way of your continued success. This could be other people's opinions, your own opinions. This could be distractions, doubts, or little things that pop up throughout the day that might get in the way. So this is about battling those things all out of the way, essentially, to stay true to your course. So this is standing up for your beliefs. This is you defending this path that you want to go on. That is your advice at this time. And I do almost wonder, because Mercury is quincunxing Chiron in your 10th, I almost wonder if there's something here around like pressure from the outside world, or from an authority figure, from a parent, from societal expectations. I almost wonder if there's something like that that can kind of get in your way. And part of the advice is to not allow that to get in your way. So just, yeah, if you've noticed that you're comparing yourself, or you feel behind, or you're judging yourself because you think others are judging you, or something like that, make sure that you're keeping your mind focused on what it is that you're inspired by. And again, using your will and your combining that masculine and feminine of like, what am I intuitively inspired to do, and how do I take action on it? How do you cultivate more of that and not feed into the voices as much? So I just said it in a way that makes you sound schizophrenic, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, so that's what I see for you guys, Cancer. I hope that this is a helpful reading for you. If so, let me know in the comments down below. I really hope to interact with you guys there, to get to know you more there. So please do comment. Don't forget to like the video, hype it, subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. All right, I'm next to Leo rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 11th house. So the 11th house has a lot to deal with our friendships, our community, our sense of belonging. And I asked Spirit, what is the blessing that you're getting from this full moon? And I got the Six of Wands. So there's something here around you guys feeling like you're finally getting the reciprocity that you deserve, the recognition that you deserve. Maybe people are gravitating towards you. Maybe you are able to make more friends, or you are finally feeling social again after maybe feeling a little bit out of it during Mercury retrograde in November. Mercury was retrograding through your 4th and 5th house. So it could have been that your home life could have been something that was drawing you in. Maybe you spent more time at home and were reflecting more on yourself. Maybe you were reflecting on issues with dating or with your children or your creative projects this past November, and it could have taken a bit of your energy away. And so now that this full moon is happening in your 11th, I feel like it's trying to kind of wake us up in some way again and reignite the flame. And for you, I think this has a lot to do with like sociability. So the Six of Wands is such a beautiful card. And again, it can really indicate recognition, and where we are feeling like people really like us or love us. And if that has been something that you've been challenged by or uncertain by, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm liked, or I'm having all these emotions around past circumstances, and you're just kind of getting thrown off kilter socially or emotionally, I can see the Six of Wands saying that you're coming out of that energy. You're feeling like you are favored again. You're feeling like you are connecting with people again, that there aren't these maybe barriers of entry that there were before. And it feels like the ice kind of thawing off a particularly cold social situation or emotional situation. So that's the blessing that I see. And then the lesson that we have is the Knight of Swords. So to me, the first thing I thought about was jumping to conclusions. This is a very fast moving card, and it's also swords, which represents the mind. And what is a Gemini full moon if not about the mind? So there's something here that you were meant to learn about, maybe your like assumptions about people or your assumptions about what people think of you at this time of this full moon. You know, Mercury retrograde could have brought up a lot of fears around, oh, these people don't like me, or these people think this way about me, or I'm not being accepted, or whatever it is, some type of rejection or uncertainty around people, or even just within yourself, and projecting that out into the world. And I feel like there were a lot of, again, assumptions that you could have been making and really fast conclusions that you came to around the interpretation of events or the interpretation of social signals. And this Knight of Swords is indicating that you were moving too quickly to a conclusion. And so now it's saying that part of the lesson of this Gemini full moon is to have to slow down, or to challenge your assumptions, to create a different perspective, an alternate perspective to challenge yourself with, I just think there's something here around, there are often pieces that you can't see in a situation. There are, like, if somebody says something weird to you, but they're having a really bad day, it might be more about them than actually how they feel towards you, but you could assume that they don't like you. So there's a lot of missing pieces that we will fill in the gaps with our own fears or our own insecurities or whatever. And that is what this Gemini full moon is trying to highlight and show, those gaps, and to leave maybe a more generous interpretation there. And this could also be, with people online as well, or in some kind of like larger group or community. It could be something surrounding that, to not just automatically assume that you understand the full context of something. So that's the lesson this Gemini full moon is teaching us. And I do think that, again, Mercury quincunxing Chiron in the ninth, there could be this thing around fears, sometimes transplanting beliefs about something, like fears fueling negative beliefs about something, and we're meant to be healing that. So the advice that you have for this full moon is a 10 of Cups. This is like the happiest card in the deck. This is you reaching out to people and feeling that they reach back out to you, that they love you, you feeling at home with your family and friends, you feeling at home in your skin, feeling optimistic, feeling like you're engaged with life, that you're excited about life, that you're fulfilled by life. So this is just one of the most emotionally fulfilling cards. And I think that it's speaking to, since this is your advice, I think it's speaking to, it's like reassuring you, really. With this Mercury retrograde, maybe you really got in your head about things and thought, maybe I don't like this, or maybe they don't like me, or maybe this isn't going well. Like, I could just see maybe some negative thinking coming in and halting your ability to receive the warmth of life or the benefits of certain practices that maybe you really enjoy. Maybe you just got disconnected from your light. And I think that part of your advice for this full moon is to reconnect to light, see how much you're loved, see how well things are going, look to the positive, and be positive, because there's a lot to be positive about. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Leo. Very, very good reading. I'm excited for you. And you might have some exciting new relationships come in, friendships come in, or just simply feel more settled in the relationships that you currently have, or the vision that you currently have for your life. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments down below. I really appreciate any interaction with my videos. I'm trying to grow my channel. I do have a goal that I might share at some point by a certain time. And so it'd be really cool to get to that goal or close to that goal. So yeah, I would appreciate subscribing if you're not, sharing, liking, commenting, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, up next we have Virgo rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 10th house of career. We just got off the back of a Mercury retrograde, which is the planetary ruler of Gemini. So this full moon really represents a type of clarity, breakthrough, movement where we maybe previously felt stuck in this past month of November. In particular for you, Mercury was retrograding through your 4th and your 3rd house. So you could have felt a little bit, you could have been dealing with issues that were largely internal or had a lot to deal with your inner monologue, or your mindset, I should say, your emotions. Things like that could have been what got in the way of your forward movement. And now that this full moon is in your 10th, there's something here around having maybe clearer goals, or just uninhibited movement in your life direction, in your career, and the moves that you're making. And I think it's largely because of the adjustment of perspective. So the way that I think that you view your interior world now is somehow shifting. So maybe, yes. Okay, I'm going to get to the cards and we'll come back to that. So the card that I got for your blessing for this full moon is the Star card. The Star card represents being able to view something from a generous and optimistic mindset, looking at the glass half full, looking at the things that you are grateful for, the things that are going well, the things that you do well. Again, giving yourself and others a generous viewpoint of the things going on. So there's something about this Star card that really speaks to having faith and hope and belief that things will continue to get better, that life is turning in your favor, that you are on the up and up. So there's something about this period of time in November where that may not have felt like the case. Maybe you were overly negative. Maybe you were getting a little bit down in the dumps, critiquing yourself, having arguments, or just feeling anxious and internally argumenting with yourself or with others, feeling a little bit whatever. I mean, whatever you were feeling, I could see there being some stuck energy and feeling down, like things were going down. Now this Gemini full moon is saying, okay, let's change the way that we look at ourselves and look at our environment and focus on the positive and come out of that down energy and be able to restructure our thoughts, or challenge ourselves to go about our framework differently, because we can choose a different framework. We can look at one situation in many different ways and ask ourselves different questions based off of the frameworks that we are applying. If we're applying a star framework, it's this idea that things are working out in my favor. We're going to look at the whole situation through that lens, and it's going to be different. So that's what I feel like this full moon is giving you that upgraded perspective. And the lesson here, I got the Judgment in reverse and the 5 of Swords in reverse. So I think part of your lesson was really meant to the Judgment in reverse. This can be about having a lot of self-doubt, being overly critical of yourself, kind of being indecisive, feeling like you couldn't, like you're waffling, like you can't move forward with something because not all of you is on the same page. So you might have felt like this in November, where you're really struggling with certain decisions or movement, especially in your career or the way that you express yourself, or getting clear on what you want and how you want to move forward with something. I can see a lot of that waffling coming back and forth. The 5 of Swords in reverse also indicates this is usually a card of conflict. So inner conflict, inner turmoil, conflict with others, conflicting ideas, conflicting opinions, conflicting paths, being overstimulated because there's so many different things that you could focus on at one time. So there's a lot of this energy around like confusion, anxiety, getting kind of revved up inside and not being able to then, like, that's requiring a lot of energy of you. So you can't use that to move forward. So I think that that's what's done, or that's the lesson that you are learning with this Gemini full moon, is how do I focus on what is constructive, what is positive, how to move things forward in my life, how to not get stuck in maybe drama or personal doubts and insecurities and things that could kind of get inside of my head a little bit and make me freeze in this moment. So that's what I'm seeing. And I think that your advice here really speaks to how you get out of that And this makes so much sense with the Gemini full moon. We got the Magician card, which is the card that's actually in charge of Gemini or Mercury. And so this card is related to logic and rational mindset. So there's something here about you guys like debunking your own fearful thoughts, or maybe you make something really big in your mind, like catastrophize something. Maybe you have black or white thinking with something. Maybe you are thinking too far ahead into the future and you're getting anxiety and getting out of your body. There's a lot of ways that our mind can become irrational. And the Magician can come in here and temper that by applying literal logic and playing things out in your head, and also looking at things in relation to another larger thing, aka putting things into perspective. So maybe I really care about this one little thing happening right now and I'm making it my whole world. But when you zoom out and you look at your entire life, is this one thing in this one moment really that big of a deal? Or is it not? And so there's something about this with the Magician where they are being able to, again, apply logic to temper the mind and also to be resourceful. This is a card of somebody who knows how to like play to their strengths. So instead of like trying to never have a negative thought, you are a Virgo after all. You can overthink, you can worry. I think it's unnatural to say that Virgo's never going to have that again. But I think it's saying, how do we learn how to play to our strengths as a Virgo rising or sun? And how do you use the ability to think logically to get yourself out of these worries and doubts, and to put things into perspective in a way that is going to benefit you, and to think more hopefully and optimistically. So, it's quite healing, this full moon. And again, I think it could really produce a lot of energy and momentum for you, especially in certain goals or objectives or career ideals that you have. It could really get things moving forward again. Whereas before you could have been stuck in this like cycle of doubt. Also relationally, things could feel like they're flowing again because Mercury is making a grand water trine to Jupiter in your 11th, Saturn, Neptune in your 7th, and then Mercury in your 3rd. These are the social houses, communicative houses. So you might feel like socially things and relationally things are like flowing more again and just less inhibited. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Virgo. I think that you're forward moving again. You're being more optimistic. You're learning how to apply logic to get out of these kind of indecisive, scatterbrained, nervous energies. And I think that's a huge gift after this long Mercury retrograde in November. And hopefully you feel some reprieve. So again, that's what I'm seeing for you. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share with your friends, and have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, next we have Libra rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 9th house. And it is coming on the back of a long Mercury retrograde in November where we were reviewing a lot of stuff. For you, Mercury was retrograding through your 3rd and 2nd house, really having you guys look at your mindset, potentially your way of relating or connecting to people, your values, your priorities, your finances, your self-worth. All those things could have been up for review or could have had past issues kind of reflare, if that's a word. I don't think that's a word. Flare up again. So this full moon is kind of what have we learned now that we did all of that analysis, now that we've questioned certain things in our life? What have we learned? What have we come out to the other side with? And a full moon in the 9th in particular can often be very inspiring. It can also give us a lot of perspective. It can give us some form or kernel of truth in a situation, which is really, really helpful. Some higher perspective or some meaning that we can make out of a difficult experience that we've been through. A full moon in Gemini in the 9th on the back of a Mercury retrograde feels highly beneficial. So you might feel like you're entering now into a phase of optimism, whereas in the previous month before, you could have felt quite stuck. And I see that when I ask Spirit, what is your blessing from this full moon? And I got the 2 swords in reverse. This card, when when represented, it could indicate some type of indecisiveness. It can feel like no way is the right way. Like there's not a best way forward. Maybe you had multiple options, multiple ideas, but nothing quite felt right. It could indicate having like emotional turmoil, anxiety, mental turmoil, uncertainty around things. And it could just feel very, almost like claustrophobic. Yeah, just like if you're going down a path and then all of a sudden it starts getting narrower and narrow and the trees start growing in and you're like realizing that there isn't a way forward. That's this kind of energy, but it's in reverse and it's in the blessing sign. So there's something about this where you realized a third way out or a solution, or you're shifting your perspective, you're shifting your take on something, or maybe something just happened to come in to kind of save the day. There's something here of like, I didn't see the path forward, or I didn't see my options. I felt like hemmed in somehow or whatever. And now I see the way forward. Now I'm optimistic about the future. Now I see this other thing that I didn't even consider, or I have this whole other path or this perspective that is completely changing my fabric of the way that I view my life. I was going to say fabric of time, fabric of society. I feel like there's a saying with that. So yeah, it's like I'm getting there being a solution here, a path here, a way forward here, clarity, a third or additional option here, no longer feeling emotionally stuck or anxiously stuck in a place, getting a feeling of freedom. Okay, so what is the lesson around this full moon? We got the Ace of Cups in reverse and Three of Cups upright. So first of all, I feel like this is trying to say that the Ace of Cups in reverse can be indicative of something that you had your heart set on or your sights set on, that you were emotionally invested in. Maybe it was a relationship you thought could come to fruition, or a career path that you were really excited about, or a vacation that you wanted to go on, something like that you're really stoked about, but then it just kind of sputters out, or it doesn't feel like it has legs. It doesn't work. It doesn't go anywhere. It can lead to a lot of disappointment where it's like, oh, but I was like getting my hopes up for that thing. Like I was really excited about whatever that was. And it could be, again, an idea, a relationship, a financial opportunity, something like that. And so you might feel like a little bit bummed out. But then we have the Three of Cups, which represents being able to shift this energy into this kind of, I don't know, like let me give you an example. Let's say you got stood up for a date. You were going on a blind date, or you met on Hinge or Tinder or whatever, and you go, I mean, this is obviously not going to apply to everybody, but just think about it in terms of your situation. You go and you're really excited, Ace of Cups upright. You got this new opportunity that you're stoked about, but then you get to the date and they never show. That's Ace of Cups reverse, this letdown, this disappointment. But then you call up your friends and you're like, hey girl, let's go drinking tonight. Let's go to the club. Let's go to this concert. Like, let's go on this spontaneous trip. And you make something out of that event or that night that wouldn't have been there otherwise. You meet new people, or you get to go hang out with your friends or people that you really, really connect with. You get that support, you get that love, you get that attention. So there's something about maybe one thing in your life not turning out in your favor, but it wasn't meant to be. And because of that, you can take that and transmute that experience into something where you feel really loved and connected with the people you're close with, or you can meet somebody new, or you can have some type of like happy-go-lucky kind of experience. It's almost like there's something worth celebrating in this thing not working out. It like makes room and space for something better to come in. That's what I'm seeing here. And this could even be around past circumstances. Like maybe I really wanted to go down this one career path and then it didn't really work out when I tried it, or I never really got things up and running. And I'm so glad that it didn't, because now look at this better idea that I have. So something like that, where you're showing, like maybe at the time you were disappointed with that thing not working out, but you're showing yourself it can be transform to something even better. So that's really there. That's the vibe of this, of like, there's another option, a third option, something that you didn't see before that is going to be better, that's presenting itself. And your advice is the Queen of Cups. So this is somebody who is very emotionally mature, somebody who has a good head on their shoulders, who's following their intuition, their instincts. So this, I think, really speaks to the grand water trine of Jupiter in Cancer in your 10th, trining Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces in your 6th, and trining Mercury and Scorpio in your 2nd. These are all water signs, but they're also in houses related to money, career, foundations in that regard. So there's something about this where you're meant to be using water, which is intuition, emotions, feeling, flowing, to get the area of your kind of career and financial life moving forward. So if that has felt at all inhibited, or if you feel like there's something just not quite right with the way that you're currently doing things, or that you need some adjustments, this grand water trine can help propel you forward by saying, just tune into your intuition and instincts, and you will know what the next right decision is in your career, your finances, in order for things to feel balanced and fulfilling for you. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I think that there, again, is a third path emerging, another idea or some kind of like breakthrough, some clarity that is going to help you realize that things that didn't work out for you weren't meant for you, and that there's actually something much better, much more fulfilling that you're going to be intuitively guided to right now that can be really beneficial for you. So very optimistic full moon in the 9th house for you, my Libra risings and suns, and I hope that you guys have a beautiful day. If this was helpful, I really would appreciate any support of my channel, which could look like a comment, which is the best in my opinion, because I get to actually see you. I see your username. If you have a picture, I get to see what you say about your life. That is the most meaningful to me. If you want to do anything like that, or giving me a thumbs up or subscribing, any of that is helpful. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, next we have Scorpio rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 8th house. So what are we gaining from this full moon? Well, first of all, this full moon comes on the back of Mercury retrograde, which was taking place in your house as well as Sagittarius, your 2nd house. So your sign, I should say. So November could have been a kind of weird month for you guys because of that Mercury retrograde in your 1st and 2nd. You could have been really reassessing a lot around your values, around your self-concept, around your confidence, what you want for yourself in your life. And it could have felt like maybe you were feeling a little bit stuck, or like you're going through just periods of rumination and uncertainty. And sometimes that can bring out anxiety and whatnot when we have Mercury retrograde there. So it could have just been a time of deep reflection for you guys. And now that we're having this Gemini full moon, Mercury is no longer in retrograde, and Mercury also rules Gemini. So it's almost like this moment of clarity, because full moons, they illuminate, they create the most light in the sky. And again, it's in the sign associated with the planet that was just moving backwards. So there is this feeling now of having things moving forwards again and clearing out and solidifying in a way where it might have been really uncomfortable and in this in-between. So with this full moon being in your 8th house, I feel like there's a lot clearing away in terms of either finances or relationships, because the 8th house has a lot to do with both of those things. And often, usually it's a mixture of the two. So those are the areas in which you might feel the most kind of growth and momentum in right now. I asked Spirit, what is the blessing that you're getting? And I got the Ace of Pentacles. So the Ace of Pentacles is some kind of new opportunity. This could be a new financial opportunity. This could be you having a good idea for something financially. This could be you meeting a new person or starting a new path in your life. Maybe part of this Mercury retrograde period helped you get clear on a certain intention or desire in order to move forward. But usually there's something like physical, like again, a person or a financial opportunity or something like this that is coming through for you as a result of this analysis. So maybe you take a chance with something, for example, and there is a response that says, yes, please do. So like, for example, I'm not a Scorpio rising, but I joined a fantasy author writing group, and they said, yes, come join us. So there's something like that where it's like, okay, I'm gonna take part in this new path, and I'm going to put myself out there in some way. And I can see that with the lesson around this full moon being the Two of Cups. I think that this is saying that the universe wants you to, again, put yourself out there in some way, to take a chance on something, to ask for help, ask for support, to look for the things that really align with you, or the people that really align with you, that really match you. Not to be totally picky, but something about that is important, to have a level of discernment around the choices that you're making, the things that you're involving yourself with, the people that you're involving yourself with, and asking, does this really reflect who I am in my soul and what I really, really want? Is this an integrity for me? Does this align with who I see myself as being in the future? Could I see myself being with that person? Do they bring out the best in me? Could I see myself going down that career path or joining that thing? Does that enhance my life, or does it detract from it? And that Mercury retrograde could have been a period of analysis where you're kind of reflecting on who you want to be. And now that it's direct and we have this Gemini full moon, it's saying time to reach out for the things that match you. That's the lesson here. And again, that could be the right people, the right events, circumstances, opportunities that you're saying yes to, and then maybe saying no to some too, because that is a part of this. With Mars in the second squaring Saturn in the fifth, there could be some things that you inherently say no to as you say yes to other things. So I pulled clarifiers for that Two of Cups, and I got the Magician and the Ace of Wands. So this is somebody who is really knows like what they're good at. They know what lane to be in. They also, with the Ace of Wands, are somebody who is inspired by something, excited by a new opportunity. So there's something about this, again, with the Magician speaking to the Two of Cups, like acting on things that feel like they are matching who you are and your essence. Like, oh, I particularly love fantasy writing, not just any writing group, fantasy writing. That feels like a soul match for me. Let me go find somewhere something that does that to join them. Or I really, really like this particular type of relationship, or this aspect of myself, like this feels really natural. Let me go find someone or something that matches that. So there's something here around knowing who you are and leaning into that and getting excited with the Ace of Wands to pursue some type of path that allows you to do something that reflects more of who you are. So allows your passions, your interests, your like natural aptitude for something to shine rather than trying to settle. Again, I think that there is some like level of discernment here around who or what you interact with, because you don't want to settle. And then we have the advice, the Six of Cups. So this card speaks to our childhood and our inner child. So there's something about this full moon that I really think it's meant to make you feel quite brave. This full moon in the eighth house often has to do with some type of like crisis, but I'm seeing it more in terms of risk and expanding our horizons and being able to take on more risks, even emotional risks. Like, oh, if I put myself out there, I could get rejected. Or if I try this thing that I've always wanted to do and it doesn't work, then I'll feel really disappointed because I really wanted it. You're taking an emotional risk in life. And that's kind of what I feel like you're meant to be doing right now, especially because you have Mercury, the ruler of this full moon, in your first house, and it's trining Jupiter in the ninth and trining Saturn and Neptune in the fifth. So there's this grand water trine going on saying it's time to be inspired. It's time to grow. It's time to put yourself out there. It's time to believe in yourself and take some kind of emotional risk and leap of faith and not let yourself settle or end up in the wrong engagements with things. And the Six of Cups speaks to the inner child, the part of you that is really inspired, that is really, again, really talented at something, that you've always kind of had a knack for something. You have a natural inclination for something, or you've always been kind of attracted to this type of person, or you've always really wanted this type of life. And you could see things, I don't know. It's just something like, Kind of lost what I was saying there. But basically, if you have a natural attraction or inclination towards something, allowing yourself to pursue that. The Six of Cups represents us having that inclination towards something from birth, and it just being a part of our inner child. And it's often the programming from the world that tells us we can't do it, we can't have it, that we shouldn't do this. And we're meant to be stepping away from that. The Six of Cups can also indicate that maybe this involves something with children. But I think it's more so about, or even your past, like letting go of childhood memories and things that could have conditioned you away from your natural inclinations. So I think it's all this is about aligning with the self. Even if it involves another person, that person brings out the best in you. That person naturally feels like a match for you, or that event or that opportunity, some alignment with the self. Okay, I'm gonna be done. So that's it for you, Scorpio. I hope that that's helpful or that resonates. I am trying to grow my channel, so if you want to offer support, I'd love to have a comment from you down below. You could just even drop an emoji, but I would really love to hear from you, to know your name, to know what's going on in your life, to get some kind of connection on this Gemini full moon, and I really appreciate that. Don't forget to also like the video, subscribe, hype the video, share with your friends. There's too many things for you guys to do, so just do one of them. But I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, it makes you a Sag rising and sun. So this Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th for you, Sagittarius, is taking place in your 7th house of relationships. And we just come on the back of a Mercury retrograde, which has gone through for most of November, your 1st and your 12th house in your sign, Sag, and in Scorpio. So there's been a lot of personal reflection and elements of the past that likely came back up, emotions from your past, or things that maybe have kind of lingered in your subconscious that have maybe haunted you a little bit. And this Mercury retrograde was a time to reflect on the feelings that would emerge, the dreams that you might literally have at night that bring stuff up from the subconscious, the things that, again, have haunted you in any kind of way. Now, though, Mercury is direct, and we're having this Gemini full moon, and Mercury is opposite Uranus. So there's a sense of liberation from the hauntings. And I can see that with the blessing cards that I pulled were the Four of Pentacles and Seven of Cups in reverse. The blessings that you're going to get from this Gemini full moon is a grounding in reality with the Seven of Cups in reverse. You're no longer in a daydreamy kind of energy, or like literally being haunted in your dreams, or feeling confused or disillusioned by things. There's this, not even just disillusion, but like, yeah, maybe like questioning yourself in a certain way. I see that you're no longer doing that, and you're getting grounded. You're getting grounded into the present, into reality. You're no longer as much in the, again, the daydreaminess or being haunted by something or worried about something that is like on the peripheral of your mind. No, this is you being focused, being clear, seeing in front of you, being in your senses, being in your body, being present, being grounded into reality and not into hopes and wishes and what could have been and what should have been and the past. And no, all of those things I think are being stripped away, especially when it comes to relationships, because this full moon is in the 7th house. So there's a lot of clarity coming through in regards to the people in your life, the commitments that you have to people or institutions, and then with the Four of Pentacles in reverse, this card speaks around letting people go and shedding the old. So I think that with this Mercury retrograde in November and the 12th, I think you were working on, like, the old came back up for you to work on really releasing it and fully processing whatever was left, whatever gunk was left over from past experiences, especially around relationships or commitment to an institution or a company. So this Four of Pentacles suggests that you are leaving it behind at the door, that you are taking that baggage, those emotions, those old experiences, those old patterns, and you're just packing it all up in your suitcase and sending it off. So there's this feeling of lightening your load and also feeling very grounded in reality, so that you are feeling balanced and like healthier, I guess, in your mindset, especially when it comes to relationships. Your lesson that you are going through with this full moon is the Eight of Swords in reverse. So the part of the lesson that I think you've learned is the Eight of Swords can represent like when we get stuck mentally on something. And I did speak about being haunted, about things kind of reappearing and reappearing in your mind, in your dreams, in your emotions. And this Eight of Swords in reverse suggests that you are shifting your mindset with things. And this is, I think, the main notion of this Gemini full moon is a shift in mindset and perspective that is going to allow you to step outside of a thought pattern that might recycle the same thoughts and fears. So let's say, for example, that you've been through a divorce or something. Maybe you are starting to date again and you start reliving, rehashing like fears and traumas and things that happened in that divorce and projecting it onto the new relationship, and you get in your head and you're like, I don't know if I should move forward or blah, blah, blah. And this Eight of Swords is saying that you're learning how to step out of the hamster wheel of thoughts that just keep circling, and you're learning how to gain a different perspective or to unplug the mic on that narrative so that you can have just a sense of peace and quiet. So yeah, I feel like you're very, again, you're coming a lot more into a grounded state, very much like a lot more embodied and healthy. So I wonder if you have some kind of like physical exercise, physical movement. The sun is in your first house right now, so it is really reflective of having like a surge in vital energy or refocus on the physical body. So I almost feel like that's a really great way for you to find some of the sense of peace that you're looking for is through movement or just like taking care of the body, coming back to the body, like through meditation. Not meditation, just any meditation, but in particular yoga nidra meditation where you do a body scan. That can be really beneficial. So just, I think that you're developing tools to be able to step outside of like thought patterns essentially and ground and not revisit past circumstances, but truly allow that to stay in the past. Your advice is the Empress card, and this speaks to really trusting that in divine timing and that life will provide you with what you need. This to me really speaks to the grand water trine in the chart right now, which is between Jupiter and Cancer in your 8th, trining Saturn and Neptune in Pisces in your 4th, and then Mercury and Scorpio in the 12th. These are really emotional and spiritual houses, very intuitive placements as well, being in water signs. So there's something about this where you are meant to be like, when you feel something, feel it. When you want to do something, do it. When you don't want to do something, don't do it. I mean, maybe it's not as simple as that because there are certain things that we have to do, but within reason, there is a sense of like flow with divine timing and with natural impulses and with the universe, and trusting that when I take this action, it will get this result. And if it doesn't, I trust that it will when it's the right time. So there's this feeling of like not having to force, but being able to receive and respond in life. And that's kind of the energy that I think you're meant to be shifting into right now with this Empress, especially if there's something that you really want. Like, let's say if you are single, because this is a full moon in your relationship sector, this is you not trying to force this, but really go with the flow. And if you feel inspired to go somewhere or say something to someone or do something one day, then following up with that, but not doing it from a place of, I need to figure this out and I need to make this happen. It's like, it's coming from a place of inspiration instead. And again, responding to what the universe puts in your path. There's a little bit more of a feminine energy that comes from a grand water trine and from this Empress card as your advice. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Sag. I think that there is, again, quite a lot of development when it comes to your mental and emotional well-being centered around relationships or commitments to a company. And I think that you are meant to trust your own instincts in that regard and not try to force anything to work that doesn't. So that's what I see for you, Sag. If this resonates, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, hype, share with your friends. I'm really trying to grow my channel, so any support is greatly appreciated. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, next we have Capricorn, rising, and sun. So this full moon in Gemini happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 6th house. And that means that the sun is currently in your 12th. It's opposite the moon. And I will start off by saying the sun in the 12th can often make us be a little bit more introspective, quieter, maybe our energy's a little bit lower. So if you've been feeling like you need some physical support or more rest, then go easy on yourself and allow you, like, give that to yourself basically. But yeah, so this full moon is coming on the back of a Mercury retrograde throughout most of November. And this was retrograding in Scorpio and Sag, which is your 12th and 11th house. And it was having us reflect a lot on those areas of our life. For you, it might have been a time of, again, a lot of introspection, kind of some quiet time, maybe some reflection around your spiritual life and your beliefs. Maybe not as much around your beliefs, but definitely like your spiritual connection and your ability to rest and take care of yourself. And then also Mercury retrograde through your 11th could be you could have had some analysis around your friend groups or your sense of belonging or your online involvement in things. So there could have been a lot of reflection going on in those areas. But now with this Gemini full moon, we are finally moving forward again. We are feeling like we are getting some kind of clarity coming as a result of the reflection happening with Mercury retrograde. And right now, not only is Mercury direct and the ruler of this full moon, but it's also opposite Uranus, which brings this spark of intensity or this breakthrough energy that can help us get really unstuck, which is nice because the first card that I pulled for what your blessing is for this full moon is the 9 of Wands in reverse, which suggests that things are finally feeling like they are not an uphill battle anymore. This full moon in your 6th can indicate that maybe you felt like your health was a little bit off, or maybe you felt like your scheduling was off and your work was off. Like maybe you weren't moving forward with those things. Maybe you felt, again, tired or unhealthy or unproductive or out of sorts, even mentally out of sorts. And I see you guys coming back online. Maybe you're getting more of a schedule now. Again, maybe you're sleeping more and taking better care of your health. Maybe you are feeling the answers to your questions. You understand what you want to do in order to get your work moving forward. But there's this feeling that you're no longer being inhibited anymore. So you don't have to try as hard and have as much suffering or like try so hard and not get as much results. I'm seeing things flowing, things moving. And I think this is also largely because of the grand water trine that's happening with Mercury in your 11th in Scorpio, trining Jupiter in Cancer in your 7th, and then also trining Saturn and Neptune in Pisces in your 3rd. These are quite social houses, so you might also feel like socially things are lubricated now, like they're not as full of friction or uncertainty. So there's this feeling of like things in your work and your health and your relationships starting to fluidly move and not have as much friction around it or roadblocks. So what was the lesson of this Gemini full moon? We have the 7 of Wands in reverse. So the 7 of Wands upright really speaks to somebody who is standing up for their beliefs and they're fighting for something that they believe in. No. The 7 of Wands in reverse, though, is like somebody giving up on something, somebody losing faith in themselves, becoming disheartened. And I can really see that this pairs a lot with the 9 of Wands in reverse. If you felt like you were losing faith in something that you were doing, or if you were like not seeing progress, like if you're trying to lose weight and you're not seeing progress on those weight loss goals, or if you are trying to finish a project but you're noticing that it's not moving forward well, or if you were trying to make friends but people weren't inviting you places, like whatever it is, that could represent the 9 of Wands energy where it felt really blocked and you could have become disheartened around that experience. So this full moon is about liberating yourself from that and no longer feeding into a mindset that allows you to give up hope, that allows you to kind of like fold in on yourself. Like this isn't about like letting those blockages win. It's about seeing that was just part of a period of time and it was trying to help you strengthen your resolve rather than feel like you're losing faith in what you're even working towards to begin with. No, it's not. And I think that's why there's like a strong kind of spiritual energy coming through with the sun and the 12th, where you guys are really meant to be reconnected to your meaning, your purpose, your why, to become re-engaged spiritually, intuitively, emotionally, because as like, if you're an empath or if you're sensitive, it can be really easy to become disheartened when things aren't going well in life or there are certain challenges. And it's saying, don't give up. Things are going to start flowing. They're going to start getting easier. And you need to maintain that faith in yourself, essentially. Don't give up on the things that you believe in or the things that you're working towards. The advice is the Eight of Wands in reverse. This is a card around slowing down and focusing. When it's upright, you can have a lot of different like potentials that you see playing out, maybe a lot of options, and it can indicate trying to move really quickly towards those goals. But with the sun in the 12th and this full moon in the 6th, this is a productive time, but it's also a really balanced time. And I do think that there's a strong message around allowing yourself to rest, allowing yourself like the right pacing for things, not applying too much pressure, which is honestly an issue for my Capricorns. You can feel like you're always behind sometimes as a Saturn ruled sign. So I think a larger part of your message at this time is to allow things to have their natural breathing room, to have a natural pace of flow, for each season to be what it is, to not feel pressured and rushed and got to figure all of it out and got to make it all happen right now. It's like you can still make progress. Things can still flow without feeling like you got to do everything all the time, all at once. And so it's giving yourself the freedom of movement without the pressure of movement. And there's a really big distinction there. It's like the difference between somebody training really, really hard to run a triathlon or, a marathon versus a kid running free in a meadow or a horse running free in a meadow. Those are really different motivations, but they're both running, they're both moving. So that's the kind of energy I want you to focus on, is feeling free and inspired in your movement, uninhibited, and also allowing yourself to rest when you want to rest, and maybe just lay down in that field and observe the butterflies or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, I think that you understand. There's this unrestrained energy, and being able to trust that you know what to focus on in each moment. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Capricorn. I think that's all I want to talk about. But if you want to update me on how this relates to your life, I would really love to hear it in the comments down below. I am trying to grow my channel, so I really appreciate any offer of support like that, or liking the video, subscribing if you haven't, hyping it. That's apparently a new thing. Sharing it with somebody if you feel like this is relevant. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Thank you. Bye. All right, I'm going to have Aquarius rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your 5th house. And this is a time when we have a full moon in the 5th where we're meant to be just enjoying ourselves. We're meant to be having pleasure, to be participating in hobbies, to be hanging out with people we enjoy, to spend money, go shopping, go drinking, go on vacation, like really soak up good vibes. That's a 5th house full moon. So if you're doing something fun, something social over these next 2 days, or this week or next week, this is good. This is good. We want to move towards feeling like life is fun, especially because in November we did have Mercury retrograde. Mercury is the ruler of this full moon. And Mercury was retrograding through your 10th house in Scorpio and 11th. So you might have had some issues come up in regards to your plans, your intentions for the future. You might have been renegotiating certain things or thinking differently about your plans and questioning them potentially. Or maybe your friend groups and your friendships, you might have been questioning those and wondering how you fit in with people and what you think about it. And this full moon is coming after that Mercury has gone direct. So we've already gone through this kind of questioning. I'm like, does that friend really fit me? Or does this goal really fit me? How am I going about this? What's up next? What are my plans? I don't know. And now that Mercury is direct and it's opposite Uranus, and we're having this Gemini full moon, again, ruled by Mercury, we're having a lot of clarity over our intentions and what is in alignment for us. And what makes us feel pleasure with this full moon being in the fifth, what makes us feel in alignment, what makes us feel inspired or excited or just feel good. And if there are things that you were going about, like you maybe had certain plans or certain friends that didn't feel good, this is your opportunity now to walk away from those things. Because I see the blessing energy is the Eight of Cups for you. And that makes a lot of sense with Mercury in your 10th opposite Uranus in the 4th. If there's someone or something in your life that was causing you to feel out of sorts, causing you to question yourself, causing you to feel insecure, or maybe they were treating you poorly, or maybe they weren't giving you your just desserts, or whatever it is, if there was anything like that going on that made you feel some type of way that wasn't positive, that wasn't bringing joy, this full moon is saying you don't need to engage in that. There is a better way to go about things. There are better people to engage with. There are different paths you can take instead of forcing yourself somewhere where people don't get you, where people don't appreciate you, where people misunderstand or misrepresent something or don't recognize the full you. And so it's really beneficial to just say, bye, bitch, I'm leaving you behind. So Aquarius, that is a really important message for you. And that also goes with your advice. I got the 10 of Swords in reverse. This is a card around maybe struggling at times to just leave the past in the past. So I could see the blessing is that you are deciding that you want to walk away from something or someone right now. Maybe it's even something in regards to yourself, like a habit that you have within your life that is not really serving you. And maybe it's not related to other people, but for most of you, I think it'll be related to some kind of friend or some kind of like career path or goal or plan that you have that you're like, I need to go about this differently, or I need to straight up leave this or end this. And so that's your blessing, but it's also something that you might struggle with this advice card being 10 of Swords in reverse. You might have like moments in the future where you kind of go back to that person or that thing, or you start to question, did I make the right choice? Or yeah, there could be some of that lingering in your energy of, okay, I'm going to leave, but am I making the right choice? I don't know. Like, they were nice to me that day, so maybe it's fine. And then the next day you're like, no. So it's like, I could see a little bit of that wobble. And so part of your advice here from Spirit is to just permanently walk away. And if you have to be in the environment with that person or thing, and you can't just immediately permanently walk away, then how do you start a new chapter emotionally while still being involved in that thing? How do you no longer prioritize what that person or thing makes you feel like? How do you no longer invest emotionally into something, even if you have to be there still? That's the vibe of this, of like, okay, maybe I can't just leave this job right away or leave this relationship right away. So if that's the case, if they're still in my surroundings, maybe it's a family member even, you're like, okay, I'm going to disengage with this. But maybe they come up for the holidays and you still got to interact with them. But how do you not give a fuck? How do you not emotionally tie yourself? That's the vibe of this, where it's like, okay, we need to permanently end or walk away from something. And if we can't, how do we emotionally and intrinsically do that so that it doesn't actually throw us off and take away from our sense of satisfaction in life? If you have children, this full moon could also speak to some kind of development with your children. So something significant happening in their lives, them having some kind of breakthrough, or having some type of realization about them or about what they need, or something happens with your relationship with them. That's also very possible at this full moon. The lesson that we have is the Six of Cups, which is a card that relates to children. So, and of course, the fifth house, which is where this full moon is taking place, is the house of children. So there could be, again, some kind of lesson around your children, like maybe your children are going through a lesson and you need to support them. Or if you want to have kids, this could be, there's some type of lesson around that. And if you do want to have kids and there's a lesson, like if you're struggling to get pregnant, for example, or if you're struggling in a pregnancy, this is speaking to needing to pursue joy and prioritize yourself above others. That's going to be really, really key. Not that others aren't important, but there could be detractors, people who take too much from you, too much energy that throw you off your balance. And so this is about coming back to yourself and walking away from people or events or things that take away from your happiness. And so that's going to be important for you to either get pregnant or have a better pregnancy, and just like even without pregnancy, just living a happier and healthier life. And the Six of Cups being the lesson card can also indicate that there's something here that comes up around like your past emotionally. Like these could be things that you've already kind of gone through, especially during that Mercury retrograde. Like maybe you had a falling out with a friend 10 years ago, and then you had some issues with current friends, and it brings up those feelings of those past circumstances that happened a long time ago. And you're like, damn, I can't believe I'm back here again. So part of the lesson is kind of learning that you maybe confront similar emotional circumstances, but that you are a different person. And so that you don't have to hang on to those people. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to re-engage in the same way that you maybe did in that previous chapter, because you have evolved. And now that you can face this familiar feeling through a new lens. And so part of this, I think, is saying that your lesson is kind of freeing yourself from the emotions of the past. So that's largely what I'm seeing for you, Aquarius, but it seems like the biggest piece of advice is to allow yourself to let go of something, to walk away from something, and not feel like you have to re-engage with it if it's not bringing you joy. That's really, really simple for a full moon in the fifth house. And a lot of this has a lot to do with our mindset, the way that we think about things, our perception of things, the way that we communicate about things, and the social dynamics of things. So those are the things that kind of need adjusting right now in order for you to have this freedom in and release in leaving something behind. You might need to shift the way that you view it, shift the way that you talk to people about it or talk to people it involves. So hopefully that makes sense. And if this does resonate for you, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share with your friends, hype the video. I'm trying to grow my channel, so I really appreciate any kind of support like that. And I hope that you have a beautiful day. Bye. All right, and last but not least, we have Pisces rising and sun. This Gemini full moon happening on December 4th and 5th is taking place in your fourth house. So there can be some new developments and breakthroughs when it comes to your emotional centeredness. You might feel really emotional right now. There could be new developments in regards to your family, to your financial security, to your sense of security in general, like on an emotional and physical level. So you guys could be having some type of breakthrough in these regards. Mercury has previously been retrograde throughout most of November, and this full moon is kind of ending off that retrograde with a bang. I mean, Mercury is no longer retrograde is what I'm trying to say. It's resolving the energy in November that was coming up for you. So for you guys, Mercury retrograded through your 10th and 9th house, which can kind of put you into a phase of assessing your life in a lot of different ways. Mercury retrograde through the 10th can have you look at your future, have you look at your plans, your goals, your career, your place in the world, and have you ask, is this the right thing for me? Am I doing this in the right way? And questioning yourself in regards to your plans and intentions. Mercury retrograding through the 9th can have you question your overall faith in yourself, faith in the universe, faith in what you're doing. And it can just have you bring up a lot of spiritual, existential questions about yourself and about life. So that was what November had. And now this full moon in Gemini is about ending off that cycle in a feeling of clarity and a feeling of being able to move forward and not just get stuck on these questions and recycle through similar thoughts. So I pulled cards on some questions I have around this full moon. And one of them was, what is the blessing that you're getting? And I got the Justice in reverse, which I thought was really interesting because usually this represents some kind of unfair balance in something. So like having someone treat you unfairly, feeling like you're not getting your rewards of the efforts that you've put in, something like this. And this is coming in the form of a blessing. So there might be something here where your career or a relationship, someone in your life maybe didn't treat you in a fair way, or you put effort into something and you weren't getting results, but or you were giving a lot to somebody, but you felt like you weren't getting treated fairly, or maybe there's something financial in a relationship or involving something else, or anything really, especially in career relationships where it didn't feel balanced and just. I can see that this is something that is going to change for you guys as a result of this full moon, but I also think that because things were imbalanced, it forced you to change your perspective on things. And that is a blessing. Like, that instigated a blessing for you, because the lesson that you learned with the Four of Cups is when to not give a fuck, or when to disengage socially or emotionally from a situation, when to say no. Like, I don't want to go out. I don't want to hang out with this person because they're not nice to me, or I don't want to care anymore if let's say, I don't know, like, I don't care anymore for the opinion of my boss because they're never giving me compliments, and I was getting so wrapped up in them giving compliments to someone else and not me. And so now I'm just going to decide that I don't care. There's like a real, like, part of the lesson is like recognizing when we shouldn't give a fuck, basically. Shouldn't emotionally invest in something. And this Gemini full moon is about changing our emotional perspective to feel more secure within ourselves, to feel more grounded, to feel more at home. And so if there were things in life that weren't treating you fairly, or were making you feel imbalanced in some way, or were literally imbalanced, then this card is saying the lesson in that was to help you learn how to disengage with it and to think about it differently, with the Ace of Swords in reverse. So this could look like forgiveness potentially for some of you, but I don't know. I almost see this as being more than that. Again, I feel like there could be some type of disengagement with this thing, and so you're kind of flipping it on its head, where you once thought, oh, this is important, I need to focus on this, I need to solve this, right? I need to turn this over in my mind. And then you get to a place where you're like, actually, I don't need to turn this over. I don't need to invest my thoughts into this. I don't need to figure this out. I don't need to solve this problem. I don't need to communicate about this further. What I need is to just back up and let go of the situation and come back to myself. And I feel like that's the advice for this, is to not turn it over in your head as much, but to ground into like a security of, I'm going to focus on what I need right now. I'm going to focus on these things that matter, on my biggest priorities. And I don't have to say yes to emotionally or intellectually engaging with these things outside of me that are making me feel off center. So that could look like if somebody was hurting your feelings, or if you were getting thrown off by something, that could look like you just deciding that you're not going to talk to them anymore, that you're not going to care about it anymore, engage with it anymore. And so I think part of the blessings is literally you taking back your ability to create balance and fairness in your life by meeting and matching the energy that you are getting from certain things. So if people in your workplace are being really catty or weird socially, or people are treating you in a certain way, you can show up and not engage with that, or not try to make them like you, not try to put energy and effort into it, because they're not meeting you with your same level of intention and effort. And so you decide to pull back. And so there's something, again, that's a blessing to be able to wield a no, to be able to disengage, to be able to take your energy back. That is a skill. That is a wonderful trait. And again, I think that's the blessing that you're developing during this Gemini full moon, is how do I protect my peace? How do I insulate myself? How do I create a love bubble with myself and the things that give back to me and meet me? And how do I just say no and disengage with the things that actively throw me off kilter? So that's what I see for you, Pisces. I hope that this is helpful for you. Let me see if there's anything else I want. I know there's also a grand water chime. So the grand water trine is involving Saturn and Neptune in your sign, trining Mercury in Scorpio in the ninth, and then trining Jupiter and Cancer in the fifth. Yeah, so I feel like this has a lot to deal with understanding your boundaries, which is Saturn and Neptune in the first, understanding your values, which is Mercury in the ninth, you know, your moral integrity, what you want to prioritize, and then Jupiter in the fifth, understanding what brings you peace and happiness and how those things fit together can create a schema or a framework through which you view and assess if a situation works for you. Is it making me happy? Is it aligning with my integrity? Is it respecting my value and adding to who I am as a person? Yes. Okay, let's do it. No. Okay, let's walk away. Okay, anyway, that's what I see for you, Pisces. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, hype my channel, share with a friend. I am trying to grow my YouTube channel, so I really, really appreciate the comments, especially because I get to see you and interact with you, or just anything. I mean, it's all really helpful, and I hope that you have a beautiful day. Bye.